Welcome back, everyone, into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's show, we're going over the role for every transfer that Syracuse basketball has brought in so far. We talked about Eddie Lampkin being the starting center for next year. We talked about Jair Davis, probably the sixth man for the Orange next season, could possibly crack his way into the starting lineup, although I really doubt it. And then now we're going to talk about Jaquan Carlos, the 6-foot flat transfer point guard from Hofstra. His definite role, Jaquan Carlos's definite role for next season is to be a pass-first point guard. That's what it is. Be a pass-first point guard. Notice how I didn't say be a starter, be a reserve, because really, there are three questions that I still have that will determine Jaquan Carlos's role for next season. Number one, will Syracuse bring in a starting caliber combo guard, or even a point guard for that matter? If they bring in a starting caliber combo guard or point guard, then Jaquan Carlos goes to the bench. He goes to the bench, and he's going to be fighting with Chance Westry, and he's going to be fighting with Chance Westry for playing time as a possible backup point guard. Number two, could Syracuse run a taller lineup and move J.J. Starling to point guard? This is possibly where Jair Davis could be a starting option. I did talk about a taller lineup for Syracuse basketball next season. Perhaps it's J.J. Starling at the 1, and then it's Chris Bell at the 2, Jair Davis at the 3, and then you have Donnie at the 4, Eddie Lampkin at the 5. That's a taller lineup for Syracuse basketball next season, which means Jaquan Carlos is not starting. And number 3, the question that I have here for Jaquan Carlos. Is it possible that Chance Westry is the starting point guard for Syracuse next season regardless? Is it possible? I guess it is. A lot of people think he's going to have a really good year because he's a former top recruit and he's been hurt for the last couple of seasons, but he still has a ton of potential. And it's not that I say he doesn't have a ton of potential, but I just don't know. I have no idea with Chance Westry, and quite honestly, nobody knows how good he's going to be next season. But if he shows off in training camp like he was last season, now all the reports indicated that he was having a really good camp, but if he does well in camp, and we know he's an excellent passer, he could be the starting point guard next season. It's possible. It is on the table for Chance Westry to be the starting point guard day 1 next season for Syracuse basketball. So those are the three questions I have regarding Jaquan Carlos's role and why it's really difficult to project any sort of minutes to him and whether he'll be a starter or whether he'll be more of a reserve. I say he's going to be a pass-first point guard for Syracuse next season. The three questions once again. Will Syracuse bring in a starting caliber combo guard or point guard that's basically better than Jaquan Carlos? Number 2, could Syracuse run a taller lineup potentially with J.J. Starling starting at point guard? And then you have the ripple effect of Chris Bell and Jair Davis, and you get the idea. I already mentioned it. And number 3, could Syracuse possibly start Chance Westry at point guard, given that he was a former top recruit, could excite in training camp, do really well, and has excellent vision, right? So those are the three questions. If the answer to all three of those questions is no, if it's a no, Syracuse doesn't bring in a starting combo guard. Syracuse doesn't run a taller starting lineup. Syracuse doesn't want to start Chance Westry at the 1. Then Jaquan Carlos is the starting point guard for next season. If the answer is no to those three questions, Jaquan Carlos is the starter. Last season, he averaged 10 points per game at Hofstra. He also averaged 6 assists per game. That led the entire conference. We've talked about it many times in this podcast. He's an elite passer. And same thing with Eddie Lampkin. They're both elite passers. And there's, to me, this might be a bold take, but I don't really consider it a bold take. This is just my honest opinion here. I don't see any reason why Jaquan Carlos, if he is the starting point guard next season, why he can't lead the ACC in assists per game. Why can't Jaquan Carlos, if he is the starting point guard, lead the conference in assists? I could easily see it happening. I just don't know if he's going to get the minutes that are required to be able to do that. That's the only thing that's really holding me up with him. Overall, if I'm going to project minutes per game for Jaquan Carlos next season, this has the biggest range. I said with Eddie Lampkin, 25 to 30. I said with Jair Davis, 20 to 25. And with Jaquan Carlos, I don't see a scenario where he just doesn't see the floor. I would say 15 to 25 minutes per game for Jaquan Carlos. Anywhere in that range, and it's a big range. But again, if the answer is yes to one of those three questions, then it's probably more towards 15. If the answer is no and he is the starting point guard, I still don't think he gets unlimited minutes. Like, I don't think he's going to play like Judah Mintz well over 30 or JJ Starling well over 30 like last season. But still, if you're the starting caliber point guard or you're the starting point guard on the team, you're probably going to play at least 25 minutes a game. So that is how I see Jaquan Carlos's role for next season. This one in my mind is the toughest one to predict, given that Syracuse can still add. Eddie Lampkin, I'm 99% positive what his role is going to be. Jair Davis, it really depends on how good Donnie Freeman is next season, but I can't imagine it's going to change much even with another addition because he's still the primary backup forward. And I don't know if Syracuse can bring in a forward that's better. But with Jaquan Carlos, it's kind of up in the air what his role is going to be for next season. That's why I say, for right now, he's just a pass-first point guard that Syracuse has, and we'll see what they do going forward. So that is it for today's episode. Just a quick reminder to you all, I announced this on Twitter at @LO_Syracuse. And on YouTube, that from now on, there will be no more segment of the week. Instead, I will be posting individual segments from each podcast. I think it just seems better